of these incidences are not experiencing this protection. In the case of Comrade Bonto, our member, her husband tried to kill her. He poured a dangerous chemical on her body during an argument. And this incident took place in 2014. He was only tried in 2019. And to make matters worse, he was released on bail that entire time. This is a man who lives in the community. This man works with her, besides the fact that he's married to her, or I should say currently they're in the process of divorcing. But the point is that we really need to do much more to protect victims. We can't just talk. We can't have holidays. We need action. As we speak now, the judgment in this case was delayed until the 8th of December. Bonto expressed genuine concerns and worries and fears about her safety because she was saying that this man is unstable, this man is dangerous, and she doesn't know whether her family will be safe given the fact that judgment has been postponed, his attorney has abandoned him. Where are the police in this situation? Nowhere, So we need to do much more than what we're doing currently when we say we want to tackle gender-based violence in South Africa.
Now, obviously, Phakamile, the case of Poncho, at a time like this, when we are looking at 16 days of activism, again highlighting this cancer, the scourge that is spreading through our society. And we know many politicians have been talking about, to the extent that even the State of the Nation address. So this has gone right up to the highest level. The key question here is these are victims who seek justice, number one, and justice needs to be meted out. And the absence of justice in terms of tackling this cancer or the scourge of 16 days of activism makes it actually very, very difficult.
Absolutely, because you see, you have to put real policies in place. You have to take genuine action. Ponto is not the only victim. There are thousands of victims out there. On my way, I was listening on the radio and I heard a terrible story of a situation where it is alleged that a man has murdered his wife and 5 of his children, the youngest being 6 months old, hacked them to death with an axe. What kind of a society are we? And I think it's really time that we have to start asking this question, because these violators and these abusers are not monsters or these are people that we know. These are husbands. These are fathers. These are leaders in communities in some cases. If you think of the case of the Mpumalanga PEC member who is alleged to have raped his own children, and look at the response from the ANC, which is to re-elect him. I don't know. I don't know what has to happen in this country for us to start to take this issue seriously. But clearly, at the highest levels, it is not being taken seriously when you look at the response of our leaders to this crisis.
Exactly. I think you make a very telling point when you make reference to the Mpumalanga case, because, here we have the president of the country talking about gender-based violence, and we're talking about all sorts of, fancy actions that we'd like to take. And when you have your very own, where basically, and as you said, his own children, his twin daughters, I remember, if I recall, and somebody gets deployed or redeployed and given another position. Now, this actually speaks volumes in terms of our seriousness and our commitment to tackle this cancer.
Absolutely. And this is why it is also incumbent upon us. We can't just throw our hands up and say, it's, there's no solution. If our leaders are failing us, then we have to be the ones to come up with solutions. History has countless examples where members of the working class, when united, have taken constructive action in order to change their circumstances, just like they did during the bad old days of apartheid, where the working class united, fought against apartheid. You'll even know, for those of you who, like myself, who were growing up at that time in the 80s, some of these organizations, they used to have their own sort of committees to defend communities. And I'm not trying to call for vigilantism at all, I'm not. But what I'm trying to say is that there are ways that we can organize ourselves in our communities so that we protect our families, that we protect our communities, especially when we can see that our government is failing us. But the one thing that we really, really should start to do, and we can no longer ignore, we can no longer keep supporting political formations and organizations that are not genuinely concerned about this as a crisis. This is no longer something that people can get away with as just being a talk shop. Women are being murdered. It's as if life for us as women in South Africa is completely different to life for anybody else in this country, especially if you are Black and poor. You live a totally separate existence, an existence of fear, an existence of extreme violence, and that has to come to an end.
Phakamile, just one other issue here is in terms of the justice system, because in this particular case, we're talking of 2014 to 2019, already 5 years down the line. And in terms of speeding up the process and bringing the perpetrators to book, the problem, I think, in terms of the justice system at this point in time, is we are seeing this time lag. And at the same time, even in terms of prosecution, in terms of the police as well, in terms of building up the case as well, the entire system seems to be in a state of collapse, for want of a better term. And this is the reason why we are not seeing these cases being sped up, number one, and number two, the perpetrators being brought to book so that they can get behind bars sooner than later.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you do need progressive reforms. You need reforms, for example, where you say that if you've been accused of a case of murder or extreme violence against a woman or a child, you should be denied bail, for example. We should have, we must provide support systems for abusive women, for abused women rather, so that if they want to leave their alleged perpetrators or their abusive partners, they should be able to do so. Many people end up going back to abusive relationships because they're financially dependent on the person. But if you create an avenue, a safe space, safe house, safe home, guarantee education for the children, guarantee an income for the mom so that she can be sustainable, you're empowering them in a real sense so that they can leave that abusive environment. And you also need to provide support systems. I mean, we obviously know that in many members of our communities are under severe strain. We need support. We need social support. We need to see more investment in social workers and the work that they do in intervening in conflict situations in the home. And if you look at, for example, decisions that this government has taken, where they've defunded some of these services. And this is why, part of the reason why the scourge is so bad, and it's almost as if there's no intervention, because where are the social workers, And that's the role of social workers in community, is that they're supposed to assist by providing that support system so that we can actually find ways in those domestic spaces to deal with domestic violence. But more importantly, if we are going to deal with gender-based violence as a whole and patriarchy, you've got to seriously tackle the system of capitalism. You've got to replace that system of capitalism with a socialist system, a system where family and society comes first, ahead of the needs of individuals. Because if we don't do that, we are going to keep perpetuating the cycle of violence, and we're never going to see an end to violence against the most vulnerable sectors of our society.
Exactly. And I think when you talk about the system of capitalism, and also it's actually featured very, very prominently, even when we look at how we've gone through this entire pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. And yesterday, We had spoken to somebody with regards to shelters for gender-based violence victims and children, and also in terms of a hotline. And this is something that come out very, very strongly as well because of dependency on their spouses for an income, for a roof over their head, for a plate of food. And what we are seeing at this point in time, Phakamile, is just what is coming to light is just basically the tip of the iceberg. And even we know that during this pandemic, while people have been under lockdown conditions, many, many thousands upon thousands of women and children are still suffering as a result of the scourge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we have to do much more. The scourge worsened dramatically during the lockdown, not just in South Africa, but everywhere in the world, because the conditions forced victim abusers together. They were forced to isolate together. And there was very few avenues for women to escape those situations during lockdown. So really, we don't have a choice. We can't keep preaching about this. Women are sick and tired of marching. Personally, I'm tired of marching. I have a daughter, and I think to myself, do I really have to prepare my child for the suffering that I've gone through? It has to end with me. It really has to end with me. And that's not something that I can do on my own. That's not something that women can do on their own. We're not beating ourselves up. We're not murdering ourselves. Men need to come and step to the plate and take responsibility for their actions and for how they are perpetuating the violence in our society.
Phakamile, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning. It's been an absolute pleasure engaging and talking with you on News and Views on Salam Media. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Phakamile Hlubi-Majola, the national spokesperson for NUMSA, coming out very strongly and raising, I must say, some telling points and I must concerning gender-based violence against women and children. And it's an entire system. This is exactly what it's all about. And it's about policy. It is about re-looking at the entire system from the time the crime is committed right until the point where the perpetrator is punished and punished deservedly, appropriately as well for these types of heinous crimes. And she mentioned the case of a case now where a woman and 5 of her children obviously killed by the spouse. Now that alone should speak volumes to us and tell us how big or how massive this problem or this cancer of gender-based violence against women and children is in this country.
Where in this dunya am I going to find a scarf to match my outfit? Only at Al